Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a fun one. Thank you for joining a little trading and how to purchase a vehicle series. I'm your host for this one. It's Dan Levy, and joining me is my co-host, automotive expert, a fellow Dan Little Jr. Dan spent 23 years in sales and management at a top 3 Chevrolet store. He has assisted thousands of customers with not only getting a great deal, but also having a very enjoyable experience in the process. Dan, would you like to tell our viewers what we will be covering for today?
So today we're going to be covering vehicle pricing. I want to go over with you guys a good explanation as to what the manufacturer suggests a vehicle is worth, how internet pricing works, and what you should expect to be paying for a vehicle.
All right, so it sounds like we've got a lot to dive into, so let's get started. Today's topic, vehicle pricing. Dan, would you be able to start explaining MSRP versus internet pricing and new vehicles and all that fun foreign language stuff?
Sure, yeah. So MSRP stands for Manufactured Suggested Retail Price, which is essentially what the manufacturer feels that vehicle's worth. For you as a consumer, it's nice to know that price could be found right on the window sticker of every vehicle. Internet pricing is going to be what you're going to see on third-party sites as well as a dealership website that's promoting the price that dealership would be willing to sell that vehicle for.
All right, so is this the price that a customer should expect to pay for the vehicle, or is that something different?
So yes and no. This is where you got to pay attention to fine print. There's a lot of dealers out there that are doing things above board, but even with that, most of that pricing is going to include things like rebates and incentives. So you want to make sure that all those numbers actually jive with each other. A good example would be, I know that there's dealers that are closer to manufacturers. So because of that, they have the ability to advertise pricing such as employee pricing or supplier discounts, mainly because majority of their customer base would qualify for that. However, as an individual that isn't an employee or supplier, that price does kind of come across a little bit as misleading because that isn't something that's going to be available to you. So I strongly suggest reading the disclaimers there as you're looking at those pricing.
Well, I'm a voiceover guy, and I read those disclaimers really fast. So for those that are joining us, I'm going to try to help him break this down to us, because a lot of this stuff is foreign language to a lot of people, and we're trying to get it all printed out. Okay, so internet. A lot of people go to search for their cars. They go on websites, and they're checking prices out. Now, the internet price that we see online for a vehicle, is that a price available for everyone, to everyone, or is that something that's based on credit? How does that all kind of intertwine in the world of getting a car?
So that price is something that should be available to everyone. Incentive-wise, as I said, incentive-wise is going to be based on qualifications. But as far as the pricing itself goes, as advertised, that's a price that would be available to everyone.
Okay, so with that being said, how do I know what price I qualify for?
So your best bet, this is where if you land on a vehicle that you know that you're interested in and want to move forward on, this is where I suggest digging a little bit deeper. Most third-party websites and dealer sites will have the ability for you to use their digital retailing tool, which will give you a good idea what the pricing structure would look like as a whole. If you want to get actual details, though, this is where I highly recommend reaching out to a sales specialist at the dealership for getting more accurate on that specific vehicle.
Gotcha. Dan, if I have to ask, is it a good idea to give all the information up front? We've been told for years that the best way to get a great deal is to work one price at a time. If you're talking about trade-in, if you're talking about payoffs and all that interesting stuff like your place of employment, your title, and all that stuff, people are always, when you go on websites, they're asking you for everything. Is it important to give away all that information first, or are you just trying to get one thing at a time down?
So that's a good question, Dan. I'll tell you that I believe that you're best off giving all the information first, and here's why. I believe everyone that's listening will agree that one of the most important things to all of us is time.
Yes.
It's something that's irreplaceable, and essentially the more information you're willing to give up front, the more accurate the numbers are going to be that come back to you. The typical questions you should expect to get asked is about your trade-in. It would be about your trade-in. It could be vehicles in your household. These things are important because it could actually help you qualify for additional incentives that you may not have seen on the website. Many manufacturers will offer like a trade assistance program depending on the type of vehicle you have. Employment, they're going to ask you about employment and your title. There's a lot of private offers, especially, I come from a Chevrolet brand, so I know that there's a lot of offers out there for medical workers and, military. So I highly recommend giving as much information as possible. It's not hurting you any, but it's going to make that price a lot more accurate for you.
When people are going to buy a car, and this one's maybe a little bit off script for us, what is the average time is it going to take for somebody, if they're going to go smoothly with it? What is the quickest somebody can get in and out of a dealership and get a car? Because oftentimes you're in there and you're like, man, I hope this doesn't take very long. And sometimes it can be 4 hours, 6 hours. I know I'm always getting dinner afterwards. Yeah. I know I've been there for a little while, but if I'm going to go there and try to go as fast as possible, is there a way to do that? Or are you're buying a car, settle in, it is what it is for a day?
So this is actually one of my favorite questions to answer because I'm going to break this down twofold for you. I've seen this work a million ways. There's times where it could take you hours upon hours, but that's where it's beneficial to do all the research online first. And the more that you do from home, the less you got to do when you get to the dealership. A good example of this, I've worked plenty of out-of-state deals over the years. And yes, it was a lot of time invested over the phone and over the computer. But I've had people that drove 14 hours, spent 30 minutes at the dealership finalizing paperwork and their test drive, and we're on the way back home. So it's a matter of what you want to invest in ahead of time.
You had somebody drive 14 hours to meet you to buy a car. That's how I know you're a guy that we can trust. All right. With all that being said, what information should I expect to see on the actual bill of sale, which is what a lot of people always say? Give me, what is the bill of sale and all that stuff? Go into all that and Foursquare, proposal sheet, all that stuff that is jargon for you guys. Break it down to a simple person like me.
Sure. So this is why I say that giving all that information ahead of time is beneficial, because what it allows the salesperson to be able to do is structure up a proper bill of sale and a Foursquare or presentation for you. Okay. So the bill of sale is going to literally break down every piece of information and every detail of what you're paying for. So you're going to notice towards the top line, it's going to have whatever that manufacturer suggested retail price was. But the next line below that is going to tell you what the dealership is charging you for that vehicle without the incentives being included. Gotcha. So this is where you're going to be able to cross-reference with what you saw online to make sure that they're giving you the deal that they offered you. If you did have a trade-in, you're going to notice that trade-in value right underneath that. And the reason for that is majority of states will give you a tax credit for a trade. So that price or that value comes off prior to your taxes being figured out. That's the reason why dealers are going to ask you what kind of vehicle you have and get information on it, because we're trying to do everything we can to get you the best deal possible. Under that trade-in, it's going to break down your fees, which you're going to see a document fee for any dealership you buy from. It usually ranges anywhere between a couple $100. I've seen it, depending on which state you're in, as high as about $1,500. And that's the fee that you're paying for all the paperwork to get processed and, all the headaches that we don't want to deal with being done by the dealership. Your taxes will show up on there. If you're getting new plates or transferring plates, that'll be on there. And then if you have a payoff on the vehicle, I'm sure you've heard before, dealers will tell you, oh, you trade your car in, we'll pay it off for you.
Right.
Well, what they mean by that is they're going to include that payoff value in your new deal. So towards the bottom, after the taxes and everything are figured in, whatever your payoff is going to be added back in there, because the dealership's going to write a check and pay off that loan for you. So one less headache for you to deal with. And then at the very bottom is going to be a breakdown of any incentives that are available. So if there were rebates or maybe there's a private offer you qualify for, that's going to come off the bottom before the final price. And there'll be a line for whatever you agree to as far as the down payment as well.
Fascinating. So the price should match what I saw online to a certain extent.
Yeah, typically you're going to see that price, or you may even see something a little bit lower, depending on if the dealership's willing to discount it for you. And you'll want to watch too. Some things that you may see is you may see something like a market adjusted price, or you may see a package that was added to the vehicle. This is why I like telling customers, this is why I like telling customers that a bill of sale is a great thing to have, because all of that stuff has to be disclosed on there. So it opens the door for you to ask the questions. When it comes to packages, some dealerships just add those on automatically, but usually that's a product that could be negotiated. So that's why it's a good thing to pay attention to.
Oh, well, then that gives me another question in terms of the package listed, market adjustments. That was not advertised on their website, yada, yada, yada. What would you recommend for something like that? When people are giving you it's a package list, it's this, it's that. And I'm like, hey, I just went on the internet. This is what I thought I was going to pay. I put in all my info, and now all of a sudden there's this. What could somebody like myself expect? And how do I maneuver with that kind of information?
So market adjusted pricing, usually you're only going to see that on specific vehicles. Over my time of doing it, it was more like the high demand vehicles. Back in 2020, 2021, when there were inventory shortages, it was commonplace for that to be on almost every vehicle. I would say in this day and age, you're really only looking at specialty vehicles, maybe a Corvette, maybe a limited edition run. If you notice that, I would tell you that may be a good telltale sign on a regular vehicle, right, that you should be looking at other avenues as to where to look for a vehicle.
Fascinating stuff. Fascinating. This is all good to know. Trade-in value, that will show prior taxes being figured in. Why is that?
So every state gives you the ability to take advantage of it in one way or another. I'm in Illinois, so I'll use Illinois as an example. You could get 100% of tax credit off the value of your vehicle. So a good example would be, say we're looking at like a $30,000 vehicle and your trade-in's worth 10 grand. You're only going to pay taxes on the $20,000 difference. And the reason for that is when you bought that vehicle that you traded in, you paid taxes on it already. So we're not going to double tax you on that.
Interesting. That's very interesting stuff. Does that change if there's a payoff? And if I do not own the vehicle yet, does that all kind of factor into that?
So that does not change. The value of the vehicle that they're giving you is going to be the same no matter whether you have a payoff or not. What it will do, of course, is change your bottom line because that payoff amount's going to get added back in at the end.
Something I never thought about, and when you mentioned it before that people came up to 14-hour drives just to see you to purchase a car. Do you pay taxes based on where the vehicle is being purchased from? So if I see a car that I like, and being that we are both in Illinois and taxes are higher than anything that it should be, would it behoove me to go to like a couple of 45-minute drives south to Indiana, or maybe go to Wisconsin and get that same car but at a better tax price?
That's a great question. I've been asked that a lot over the years. So your taxes are based on where you reside. Now, I will tell you that every dealership handles it in different ways, mainly because some states cannot collect taxes for other states. But if they can collect, it'll be collected based on your area. A good example, in Illinois, there's multiple counties, and depending on what county you're in, it could be a big range. Chicago is creeping up on the 10 to 10.5% on taxes. But if you're in Will County, you're still under 8%. Oh, wow. So, mentally you would think that if I bought a car in Will County, I'd be in better shape, but that's not accurate because what'll happen is if they mischarge you on the taxes, you're eventually going to get a bill for the tax difference anyway, once the state goes through all the paperwork. So I usually always recommend that you double check your bill of sale to make sure that the tax percentage was factored for your county, because that's what's going to ultimately be your payment there anyway.
Interesting. All right. So you also mentioned the proposal. Go over for our listeners and myself on what I would see there. Go into the proposal situation.
Sure. So the proposal is also known as a four square at a dealership. And the reason is literally it's a piece of paper with four squares. So in that top square, it's going to go over what the price of the vehicle is and what the agreed sale price is. Usually the other top box is going to have your trade-in value. And then there'll be a box with the incentive and the down payment amount that you're utilizing. And that final box is usually going to have a breakdown of estimated payments based on a couple different terms to give you an idea of what's available. So that's essentially what the proposal is, but that's what's going to give you the best idea of what you're going to look at if you're looking for a cash out the door price and or what's my payments going to look like.
Interesting. That's all interesting stuff. All right. Well, I know that I've learned a lot for today. You've given us a lot to digest on. I hope our listeners did as well. And that's going to conclude today's episode of A Little Training in Understanding Vehicle Pricing. Tune in to our next episode next week where we will dive even deeper into all you need to know when trading in a vehicle. Dan, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we dip out of here?
No, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you guys all on our next episode.
If our viewers would like additional info or contact, how can they do so?
So I actually have an app for A Little Training that's going to have additional training and whatnot on it, as well as my contact info. You're welcome to go there, or you could reach me at dlittle@alittletraining.com.
And you also do personal training sessions for groups and stuff like that. If people wanted to sign up for a group session, how would they go about doing that?
Yep. For additional information on that and pricing, it'll be based on location and how big of a group. You could email me at dlittle@alittletraining, or you could shoot me a text or give me a call at 708-969-2799.
Awesome. Great. Until next time, my name is Dan Levy. He is Dan Little, signing off. Thanks again for listening and watching. You've been watching A Little Training. We'll talk to you guys next time. See ya.